because you can do it with my.
Yeah. All right. Whatever.
I can hold it too if that helps.
Yeah, do that.
Welcome. Thank you so much for being here. And thank you to Fitzgibbon for hosting us on such a short notice. My name is Tony Essenshea, and I'm the director of the Norwegian documentary Drone that is releasing theatrically in the States on Friday. Never before have we seen such a big gathering of former U.S. drone pilots come out to speak about their experiences from the inside of the U.S. drone program. Their voices are incredibly important to understand how this drone program operates and does not operate. Drones have changed warfare and our future, and without us having a proper debate on what this really means morally, ethically, or legally. It is sold to us as surgically precise, clean, and efficient. We are here to tell you that it's neither. The U.S. is setting an extremely dangerous precedent with your use of drones, killing thousands of people outside of declared war zones with no transparency and no accountability. And it is just the beginning. What is going to happen when countries like Russia, China, or Iran starts using this technology to take out people around the world that they see as imminent threats? As the Intercept drone papers revealed, 9 out of 10 strikes killed around people, and most of the people killed in the U.S. drone strikes are civilians. On the ground, the drone is seen as the most cowardly way to wage war. It's creating a lot of anger, a lot of hatred, and feelings of revenge. The failures of the U.S. drone program is fueling terrorism. Like the head of intelligence for JSOC recently said, the U.S. drone program is creating more militants than it kills. We are simply adding fuel to the fire. And this has severe consequences, and we are starting to see how the ripple effects of these is coming back at us. Terrorism is cowardly, is horrible, and is used to install fairness. But we must not fight terror with terror. The failures of the war on terror shows that this simply does not work. We need to hold those in charge accountable for the U.S. drone strikes. We need to demand that there are investigations into who's being killed in the U.S. drone strikes, and we need to know the criteria behind the targeted killings. And we need to make sure that international laws set the standard for war for all of us. I'd like to just quote President Obama from the Nobel Peace Ceremony. I believe that the United States of America must remain a standard bearer in the conduct of war. This is what makes us different from those whom we fight. I have worked closely with drone pilots for the last 5 years. Several of the gentlemen at this table are featured in our film. And I'm deeply impacted and disturbed by their stories from the inside of the drone program. And I'm very moved by their courage. And it is an honor to share their insights with you here today. Thank you.
So next we're going to hear from Jesslyn Radak. She is an attorney with Whistleblowers, and she could explain some of her position here today. Sorry for worrying about having these microphones like this. If you want to hold it,
Just put it on the table. Don't worry about it. Yeah.
Good morning. Thank you for coming out, and thank you to Fitzgibbon Media for hosting. I'm Jesslyn Radak, and I represent National Security and Intelligence Whistleblowers. And I'm honored today to represent the whistleblowers you're about to hear from. This is a historic morning. Never before have so many former drone service members come together to blow the whistle with one voice, openly, using their own names, on the tragic, illegal, and immoral consequences of this program. Amid an unprecedented crackdown on whistleblowers, these 4 drone operators are taking an enormous risk to speak openly about one of America's most secret, dark programs. They tried to complain internally to no avail. I hope raising their concerns with the public will be more effective. Thank you.
So right now I'm just going to offer a little bit of housekeeping. What we're going to do is we're going to ask 4 questions of the group, and then we're going to open it up to the larger press pool here. Those 4 questions are going to kind of help direct some of the specifications of each one of these drone operators and kind of highlight some of their unique experiences. So my first question is towards you, Stephen. I'm here at the end if you want to get the microphones.
That should be all right.
Stephen, our drone policy has had a devastating impact on civilians in areas in which they fly. During your tenure as an operator, can you recall any moments where you had to take a shot?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, that's okay. Were civilians impacted, and how were you personally impacted by the orders you followed?
Sometimes it's not about the shots you take, it's about the shots you wish you could. I know I was on an operation somewhere in Afghanistan, and there was a troops in contact situation where soldiers were taking fire. And we saw, 4 guys walking down a mountainside. I didn't know if they had anything to do with it or not, but for all I knew, I didn't see any weapons, I didn't see anything like that. And just about that time, 2 Hellfire missiles came in, took out 3 of them. The 4th one was laying there on the ground wounded. And we were given the order to shoot that guy. Fired the missile off, and 1 second he was there laying on the ground. The next second, he wasn't there anymore. It gets to you. I didn't know if that guy, I didn't know who he was. I didn't know if he had anything to do with it. Nobody else really knew. I asked the question and didn't give him an answer.
It's been hard on you dealing with that, correct?
It wouldn't be hard on. It's not, you don't have the advantage of looking your enemy in the eye. You don't have the advantage of knowing if they're a combatant or not. You don't have that knowledge. And you're just given an order.
You were offered a re-enlistment bonus if you came back. Can you explain that?
I was offered a re-enlistment bonus, and to the sum of upwards of $100,000. I turned it down. I didn't. You can't buy me. You can't buy my soul. You can't buy my conscience. The money's not worth it if you're commanding over.
Thank you for sharing that. You know, that kind of brings to mind, did any of the other gentlemen here, were you ever offered a reinstatement bonus? Was what Stephen experienced unique?
I was offered a $109,000 re-enlistment bonus. I was offered a step promotion to E6, safety evaluator upgrade, and base of preference if I would stay in, and I denied it.
$80,000 with $40,000 up front because I was an instructor, and I turned it down.
You know, Kane, I think we might as well keep the microphones over here because my second question's kind of aimed at you, and it has a couple parts to it. And so, but I think it's important. Kane, you worked on the technical end of our drone program. Yesterday you explained to me that before a shot could be fired, one or more variables like human intelligence, signal intelligence, and image verification has to happen.
Right.
How has our signal intelligence failed us?
Well, if you only need two of the three in order to authorize a strike. I learned that from these guys. So when you have human intelligence and you have imagery intelligence, that human could be lying, and oftentimes there are people who are just to get money. And if you have imagery intelligence and signals intelligence, it's very possible that whoever your target is might have traded out their SIM card on the black market, and this happens quite often. They're pretty wise to it. So there's always the off chance that you could end up targeting somebody who's totally innocent, and you know, of course, that's usually not counted. It's usually confirmed as a enemy kill.
So, you know, this failure of signals intelligence and the hit only being as good as the SIM card being associated with the appropriate target and not swapped out in the market, et cetera, et cetera. There's also relay implications from this, in that foreign countries, perhaps unbeknownst to them, are implicated in the signals intelligence relay. Can you explain that, or can you clarify if I said that?
Right. So we were collecting signals from all over Afghanistan, 250,000 square miles, and we were relaying the signal between us and the Combined Air Operations Center in Udeid, and as well as Ramstein Air Base.
Ramstein's in Germany?
Ramstein is in Germany. And at the end of my tour there, I received a EPR report, which is an enlisted performance report, that said I had assisted in 200 plus enemy kills. Well, it was 2,400 close air support missions. So, you know, and you can probably confirm with these guys that's BS. Those enemies aren't always enemies. You know, a military age male is 12 years old. And if I'm being held responsible in my performance report, and I've thought about this for a long time, I mean, if all the signals are coming through us, then that implicates anybody else who those signals are going through, including Germany. And I believe it's immoral and just unethical to do that with a foreign country and not tell those citizens, because we've broken their trust, and that puts us at a bad position.
You did want to say something about accountability? It's kind of
Right. Well, the thing is, whenever these drone missions happen, you know, you have the kill chain, that side of it, the decision makers, but then you also have the technicians. They pull the triggers, they make the decisions, we make the triggers work. We allow for the communication for the decisions to be made. So one thing that's not really being paid attention to in the media is that everybody who's involved in the system is actually committing whatever act, you know, Brandon, Michael, or Steven, or any other drone sensor operator, pilot, or decision maker is making. And there's not a connection really made with that within the United States military, and it's not made to the public. And I think that's critical to understanding, you know, the issue with what's happening in Germany, and also just understanding what modern warfare is becoming, because we're going to increasingly become more network centric, and you're increasingly going to have to ask who's responsible, because more and more people are involved on a technical level, and in the decision-making process, you're going to see less and less people involved.
By the way, I mispronounced Sean's name earlier. The proper pronunciation of his name is Sean. I apologize for that. The next question is for Michael. Michael, your contracts span part of the Bush administration and part of the Obama administration. Can you tell us a little bit about the culture amongst drone operators? What's morale like there? During your tenure as an instructor, did you notice an increase in the amount of students they were sending, and did you see a decline in the quality of students that were being sent here?
Yes, there was an increase in the number of students that the 11th Reconnaissance Squadron was producing, and there was a rapid decline in the quality of personnel. It shifted from my time early on under the Bush administration when I was just an operator to from where we started at was we were more concerned with intel building. We were more concerned with providing information. Whereas it became really apparent as an instructor later on under the Obama administration that the mentality has shifted in what you would call an average student from just intel building to firing a Hellfire became the ultimate goal. As it was a merit, like that was a meritorious thing to do, was to fire a Hellfire shot. Circumstances be damned.
You know, you have a personal story wherein you were once reprimanded for holding a student back because of their eagerness to fire.
Yes, with the increased number of Predator missions that we had in the air, we needed more people to fill those. So the emphasis became, we've got to get them through, and we just get them qualified on paper and get them legal to fly. One of the students I had in there was a rather mundane mission where we try to keep them so we don't overwhelm them with anything. And people in the compound, and he's saying, I think these guys are up to no good. As an instructor, I'm thinking I can use this as a teachable moment, make him realize that that's not how you should. And that's what about it is suspicious, and he was rooted in the ground and was saying that yes, I don't think they're up to no good. And I say get the hell out of the seat, knock it off, which is the brevity term we use to end the training flight right there. I pulled him out of the seat, I got in and finished out the rest of the mission, and I failed him on his ride. I was brought into upper command's office and asked me to justify, why are you holding him back? We need sensor operator. I said, I don't want a person in that seat with that mentality, with his hands on those triggers. It's a dangerous scenario for everyone, and it's not going to do any good to have somebody with that bloodlust in there. And they have to understand that this isn't a video game, and that when you fail, when you kill the wrong guy, it's not a checkpoint and you'll reload and start over again. It's those people stay dead, and that those are real people on the ground. And that was probably the other big change I saw, is that there was a much more detached outlook on who these people were that we were monitoring and watching through those cameras. It was, we got to shoot. There was shooting is something to be lauded. That was the mentality, and it's something and it was something that they should strive for, which is not. I always tried to teach them that the most important thing was preserving our guys' lives, preserving innocent people's lives before killing even comes into play. And and some students really hated me for that. Others did take to it, so I do take a little solidarity in knowing that I did change at least a few people's minds.
You know, we have to be sensitive to time, but something important I think that you experienced, and a lot of you guys experienced, was there was a sort of dehumanizing culture there. Can you talk about some of the acronyms and slang terms that were being sent around? And mind you, this is not an endorsement of these slang terms, but to give you an idea of what was going on inside those squadrons.
Some of the more depraved terms that I heard referring to children as a fun-sized terrorist. And at the time, you're so immersed in the culture, you kind of go along with it. And you don't really think about it, but then when you look back on it, you kind of realize how sick that actually is. Other ones were, we call them tits, terrorists in training. Other lingo and slang would use be cutting the grass before it grows too tall, pulling the weeds before they take over the lawn. It was just anything you could do to remove their humanity, and in the process, you're losing a bit of your own humanity.
Thank you for that. And I think that's a good segue to Brandon. Brandon, you were part of our nation's Special Operations Command. Do you believe that our drone policies in Yemen, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Iraq have served to create more terrorists than it's killed? And along with that, how many shots have you taken? And do you think that our drone policy has enabled recruitment drives for groups like Daesh, ISIS? Have our reapers reaped what we've sown?
I'd like to start off saying that I took 5 shots, which killed 13 individuals. 10 of those individuals were non-confirmed combatants. 3 of them were confirmed combatants. And I've done my public speaking, my truth speaking for the last 3 years, and I've seen and met a lot of different people. And I've experienced both sides of the issue from other people's perspectives, and I do realize that they do use this as a method to recruit whoever they are. I've seen YouTube videos of them burning effigies of drones, cheering. I've seen them, they don't want to go outside when it's daytime. They're afraid. And these people, they want to attack the source of that fear. It's as simple as that. They don't want to be afraid anymore. And the people that are recruiting them are exploiting that, and we're enabling that exploitation.
So you prepared a statement, kind of from yourself to the president and some of the other folks that are in the head of the command. I think I'm reiterating what Dr. Nomet. If you're willing to share it with this group, I think maybe we can kind of close this panel portion on that statement and then open it up for questions.
Right. So this is my statement to our leadership, and especially Mr. President Obama, that I helped vote into office. I find it odd that we have to communicate like this simply to get the truth out to the American people. I find it odd because it seems that something is not right and few of them are demanding answers. Answers as to why we are allowing our political leadership to abuse its power and excusing it as normal. My compatriots and I have seen the abuse firsthand, and we are horrified that our participation in the U.S. drone program contributed to the violation of our oath to our Constitution. As a constitutional law professor, you should understand that this bedrock of this agreement between the people and our government. I hope we can convey the sacredness of what it means to defend it against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Because you see, Mr. President, we are a republic democracy. You are supposed to take orders from us, the people. We voted you into office because we wanted you to fulfill your promises. We needed somebody to step up and be a leader, a revolutionary. Instead, our country is viewed as one of the main driving forces of fear and destabilization in the world, all done in the name of the U.S. people, at the lives of our veterans and soldiers, and on the sacrifice of our integrity and our honor. We cannot let this be the world we give our children. We have to not let our fear drive our course into the future. We have to be the standard bearer for how peace can be achieved, and this is what will separate us from those who do violence. Could it be that our aggressive military stance is fueling our perpetual state of war? Have we forgotten our humanity in our pursuit of vengeance and security? I'm curious because it seems like the actions of late have only made the problems that we are facing worse. And by making the problems worse, our people are in danger, and our legacy is in danger. We think that this is good enough reason to demand answers. Perfectly legitimate reason for people like Manning, Snowden, and us to step forth and give the answers to counter the lies being told to our people. Thank you.
So what we're going to do now is we're going to open it up for questioning. I would politely ask, and I'm sure it's a little bit frustrating, that I'm going to kind of run interference on some of the questions just because I want to make sure these guys stay safe. They're in a pretty difficult position, the position that they're in right now, and there's lawyers here to help us navigate through this, but I want to try to help everyone get the questions answered. So your hand went up first, then you second.
Hi, I'm Angela with Reuters. This is for Jesselyn. As Snowden's attorney, in the Washington Post today says that Snowden is responsible for the Paris attacks since he leaked some of the NSA and British tactics on surveillance. And the CIA officials said that Snowden's leaks were directly responsible for the Paris attackers to change the way they communicate. I was just wondering about your response to that.
You know, I think that's part of the fear-mongering that these guys are talking about today. We're here to talk about drones, but there's absolutely no evidence of that. It's like saying terrorists drive cars, and therefore everyone should be deprived of being allowed to drive a car. There's no evidence that Snowden is remotely connected to any of this by making secret surveillance, that has been kept from our country, by blowing the whistle on that and revealing the government's waste and illegality and deception. And I think that's what we're talking about, similar kind of thing here today. And I will not be surprised, in fact it's already happened, that for speaking out, Brandon to my left has been retaliated against by our government, telling his mother that he's on an ISIS hit list, which was totally not true. What was being used to silence whistleblowers, and these continued attacks on Snowden are the same thing.
And just before we get to the next question, I just, there might be an opportunity after this part is wrapped to have sidebar discussions about things that aren't specifically related to these gentlemen, but I want to keep the focus on these gentlemen.
Thank you. My name's Andy. I'm from England called The Independent. I don't know who it's for, so you can decide. Can one of the operators tell us about some of the more mundane details, so to speak? I'd like to know, were you operating in the US? Were you on Bagram? What was your shift? Did you get a break? What did you do after your shift happened? Did you go into your family? Did you go to the barracks? Did you go and then watch TV? Because the way it's portrayed for us is that it's all, as what you said, very clean, very surgical, very humane, but you're suggesting anything other than that.
This job is, it was unlike anything else, but a lot of the times, when you weren't firing a hellfire shot, you could say it was a rather boring job. Innocuous, just circling around a target, watching it burning a hole in the sky. And you're forced to do that for 7 to 8 hours a day, 10 hours if you were in some squadrons, and others 11 and a half hours. I'd say alcoholism wasn't considered to be a problem because it was just everybody drank after they got off their shift. My entire flight, when we were finished with our shift, the 15th, we'd usually go to a bar all together, drink for about 3-4 hours after the shift, and then it's like, oh, it's 12 hours before we got to be back there. We have to stop drinking, and that was alcohol wasn't. I mean, if you drank a lot, you weren't even considered to be different or anything. That was just standard.
Where was this, Michael?
This was the 15th Reconnaissance Squadron
And looking.
in Creech, at Creech Air Force Base. So about a half an hour outside of Las Vegas. So we drive back, go into Las Vegas, and get drunk and go home. And it kept escalating. You know, it was either you'd be drinking more, or speaking for myself personally, I developed a really bad cocaine addiction after I got out of the Air Force. But while I was in, and I wasn't alone in doing it, but other people, you know, we'd start experimenting with other drugs, things that weren't detectable in our urine tests, you know, bath salts, synthetic marijuana, anything you could do to bend that reality and try to picture yourself not being there. And I found myself in the last 6 months I was in, I was taking little bumps of bath salt right when I'd wake up. I'd sneak off into the bathroom, take a couple more bumps, and go and instruct a ride. And it was, you know, synthetic. Like I said, synthetic marijuana was something others did. Something that was actually standard back when I was in the 3rd SOS at Nellis was, you know, drinking immediately after you left the squadron. I lived on base at the barracks, and I would walk home with a bottle of Jack Daniels in my flight bag and just take swigs of it as I'm walking back to my dormitory, just to, you know, 1, to relax myself, 2, to forget, and 3, to help me go back to sleep, because I was only on a midnight shift.
And the bath salts wasn't anomalous. Without getting into names, there was at least a half dozen to a dozen people that you were aware of taking bath salts, and it was just your unit itself, right?
But just on my shift alone, there would be, I'd say, upwards of a half dozen people who were on in various group positions.
And maybe you're not able to answer this because it's a hard question to answer, but that impaired people, correct?
Yes.
Can I?
Yeah. Yeah.
Can I just follow up on the anecdote you told earlier when you were disturbed by this guy you were instructing? Were you reprimanded for taking him off the training mission?
Non-judicial punishment didn't go on my record, but I didn't instruct for approximately 10 days. They just had other instructors, which do the instructional flights for those students to get them through, because it takes about 6 or 7 instructional flights to become combat upgraded after you get out of the 11.
Anybody else? Questions?
John Scott back with the Vice. Just wondering, so about the process of signature strikes, and I'm just wondering of how much, if anything, is the sensor operator aware of the sort of decision-making process that goes across when you're basically determining these people who are unidentified, who are going to be taken out by a Hellfire missile? Like what part of that process, if any part, do you have knowledge of before making this strike?
This was also touched in a little bit in the film, my news film, Drone, and I've talked to it before. We don't have any decision-making ability in this process. We are told that we can make the abort call if we need to, but if we make the abort call, they would take us out of the seat and place someone else in the seat that would take the shot. So they tell you things to make you feel good about it, and that gives you some semblance of control when you have no control at all. But really, operators do not have any part in the decision-making process that goes on in these things.
On topic. You said earlier, this is continuing one, that the drones have created more extremists than they have killed. Just give me, why do you say that? Just tell me why you say that.
We kill 4 and create 10. Is that really what we're trying to achieve? If you kill someone's father or uncle or family member, that they're not part of the problem, and all of a sudden these people want revenge. They're a completely different culture than we are. They're mostly tribal warrior culture who operates on the law of caste and blood debt. And you harm these people, and they're going to want revenge. Anyone else?
You know, actually, to add to it, can you give some sort of breakdown between the shots you fired the impact they had and who you know was a targeted individual? Only if you're able to. But
The one that we talked about? Yeah. So I took 5 shots. The first shot that I took, we were in a troops in contact situation where we came onto scene to see individuals firing at coalition forces, and then we were moved, our target was moved to 10 kilometers south by southeast of these people, and we found 3 individuals walking along the road with weapons, and that was our only clearance to shoot, or our only reason that they gave us to shoot was that these guys were carrying weapons, and killed 3 individuals there, killed 2 people in a house. About a month later, and we were told that these guys were there. Didn't see it. There was signals intelligence that confirmed it. About a couple months after that, I saw 3 individuals in Mosul, Iraq, driving around, and they were firing a mortar out of the back of this pickup, and illegal combatants that I believe, and we killed them. And then the final shot that I took that killed people, we had human intelligence that said that these were 5 individuals were coming through a pass in Pakistan into Afghanistan carrying weapons, and we found them. We waited for them at this pass, and we saw them come through and bed down for the evening. So we had human intelligence and imagery intelligence to confirm it, and we waited for them to go to sleep, and then we killed them. Didn't see them do anything wrong. There was no secondary explosions. And you want me to talk about the specific person that we tracked?
Well, I actually, my point of that question was that it's your understanding that only a fraction of the people were engaged in combat. The rest of them were technically non-combative by the rules of law. So, and can you define that a little bit? So I think that's illustrative of, here we have this larger percentage, and the larger percentage are not actually, under the laws of war, being lawful combatants.
Right. The justification that we were told was that we were protecting people. It was very rare that we actually engaged in troops, enemy forces that were actively engaged in combat. Usually because we have something called CAS, or close air support, and there's things called danger close, which means that if our troops are too close to enemy forces, we cannot release weapons to hit these people because of the danger to, it's called percent of incapacitation of these people. So typically we would also watch these things play out as well.
And then with Jeslin's guidance, whatever you could talk about, because you had indicated you wanted to hear about who they were tracking.
Well, that wasn't my question. I was going to say.
So, I was part of the mission that hunted Anwar al-Awlaki down. I did that mission for 10 months. I got out before he was killed. But we were told that this man was a traitor to the United States and that he deserved to die. And when I was given this information in February of 2011, that we were finally hunting him down with armed drones, that we were going to kill him, there was a little bit of discontent with many of the officers in my squadron because they had sworn an oath to defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic, while the enlisted oath adds the orders of the President of the United States. And I realized that I didn't know what the Constitution meant in regards to how we should deal with a traitor. And the pilot that I talked to, he said that in Article 3, Section 2 of the Constitution of the United States, it says that even a traitor deserves a fair and free trial in front of a jury of his peers, and that we were violating the Constitution of the United States by going after this guy in this manner. I had sworn in, I'm a man who was raised on the premise that the only thing that a man has of worth in this world is his word, and if you cannot fulfill your word, then you have no worth. And I swore an oath to defend this Constitution, and they made me break it with this action. And 6 months to the day after I got out, Abdullah Rahman al-Awlaki was killed, a 16-year-old boy from Colorado. who was searching for his father, and I was also a man who grew up without a father, so I kind of had my heart out to this boy, and I couldn't separate the fact that my president, who I voted into office as well, the only thing that he said on public television was he was sorry. There was no justice in this.
The president's spokesman also said that Jay Carney said that that Abdul Rahman al-Awlaki had the wrong father.
What would your response be to those who say that drones are actually a fantastic tool in the US Army, that they reduce the need for boots on the ground, not only they show their utility by taking out people like Jihadi John, and that while clearly there needs to be a bit of oversight, they're actually brilliant.
I'm going to start this off and then pass it to the other gentleman, because I believe that their input on this matter needs to be heard. But I highly respect the people on the ground because I've worked with them. There's, the warrior ethos that we always talk about, that we hold people accountable to, and you devalue these people when you say that, well, we're going into conflict without these individuals on the ground. You're devaluing the ability of us to face our enemy face to face, and you're excusing our actions as easy, and it makes it easier to go to war simply by not placing anyone in harm. And is there any war that we are willing to not pay the price to fight?
I'd say you're correct. I'd say to those people that they're correct. These drones are very good at killing people. We wouldn't be here if they were bad at it. That's where the controversy comes in. They're good at killing people, just not the right ones. That's all I have to say on that.
I would say that in the short term, they're effective at killing whatever targets that you're searching for. However, in the long term, there is consequences. There's children who grow up. I mean, there's 15-year-olds today who haven't lived a day without war, without drones flying overhead or aircraft flying overhead. In addition to that, you have expats in other countries, and they're watching what's happening in their own countries, and they know that there's injustice there. They know that, for instance, we're not abiding by international law with the countries that we're engaging in. So that could radicalize them. And I think we need to reevaluate what the effectiveness of these drones actually are.
I was involved in an operation in Afghanistan before. They told me to fly 50 miles to the north and find about 15 people. They were walking along a road carrying AK-47s, RPGs, and a Dishka, which is a light machine gun. I found them, and we were watching them. We were ready to take these guys out, and they walked into a village and sat down, and we were still sitting there waiting for clearance. Shortly after that, we got a call, and it was from the guy in charge. He's telling us that they're going to send a quick reaction force there, put troops on the ground. They're just send some guys in there to roll those guys up. Well, I did what any good sensor operator would do. I started scanning, started figuring out the best angle of attack for these guys, so that way they got off those choppers, they weren't going to get shot. On the back side of that particular little hut they walked into, there was a little hole in the wall where they could see out the back. You could fire out of it too. And I've brought this to the attention of the people who were making the decisions. They didn't believe. They did not trust my expertise. And for that, as soon as they landed those helicopters in that guy's backyard, 3 American soldiers lost their lives that day. What good are the drones? What good were they then? I could have saved 3 American soldiers that day. They would have went home to their families. They didn't get the chance to do that.
You know, we have the microphones on you, Stephen, right now. If you're comfortable right now, you know, can you talk a little bit about PTSD? And people often associate PTSD with being in the field, and maybe they haven't thought about this more complex nuance of the PTSD associated with the jobs that you guys do.
It's a tricky thing. You come back from a deployment, you'll be fine for 6 months. You'll be fine for 6 years. Then one day out of the blue, something happens and you fly off the deep end. It's not about if, it's about when. And when it hits you, it's hell. I mean, the worst possible feeling on the planet.
Did you witness other operators going through similar feelings? Can you speak about the rate of attrition? And maybe that's a question for everybody here.
That program hemorrhages people. Almost every single person that I know that was in the program is no longer in the program. We don't like it. We don't do it. It's not a good job. It's not a fun job. It's not a happy job. There's
Can I add something
Yeah.
really quickly,
Yeah, 'cause I don't wanna-
representing a number of drone clients? I mean, I think, how many people at this table do suffer from PTSD? All of them. All of my drone clients do. Part of the problem has been getting veterans benefits for drone people involved in the drone program who suffer from PTSD because they were not boots on the ground. But this program has left people, all of them, with PTSD. Many of my clients are homeless. Most of them are unemployed. Most of them have dealt with addiction issues, and most of them have dealt with separation or divorce from a loved one. And this is a representative sample. I can tell you I represent many other drone whistleblowers who validate exactly what these guys are brave enough to say to you today. And that is a huge problem that this program is leaving people in such a state.
you kill people. That's what you do in this program, and that doesn't go away.
Yeah, this is kind of my home territory, I guess. You know, I've talked about my experiences for 3 years, and I've been getting ridiculed by many, many people, especially other veterans. I've gotten threats from other veterans. The VA is trying to deny me my disability as we speak, and take it away from me. I can't get a normal job. I can't have a normal relationship with people. I've lost friends and family over this simply for how I've talked and why I've talked about it. So it's destroyed my life in all aspects of it. It's not fun to deal with these psychological scars when you have no physical scars to back them up, because no one wants to believe you. And I think that one of the things that we need to address is the fact that veterans are not getting the health care they need in general, not just drone operators. There are 22 veterans a day reported that kill themselves. That needs to be addressed. People say that they support their troops. Thank you for your service to our country. And they let our politicians take away what we earned. We killed for you. We have died and been maimed for you. And you're allowing us to continue going to war, sending children to war, 'cause that's what we were. We were simply children. And then you ridicule us when we have anything to say. The people that are speaking out right now, they get ridiculed. And then the media covers it up. And I'm really just sick of it. I'm sick of the fact that we excuse our actions. And we can't do that anymore. That is why I am here to support these men and anyone who else wants to come out. Because this needs to be addressed. Every veteran deserves to have their story shared, and everyone should listen to each veteran's story, no matter what position they play in the entire military-industrial complex.
Speaking for myself personally, as far as PTSD goes, I'm not sure. The most contact I've really had with any sort of VA psychiatrist was about a 20-minute interview, and he just gave me a prescription for 20 milligram methylphenidate twice a day to, I don't even know why, drug addiction and psychiatric problems, and the solution is more drugs, but that was his opinion. So, but the real problem is that I don't even, at least I'm not getting the benefits. I don't even get my medications on time. They say order 2 weeks in advance, you know, when you're halfway gone, and sometimes I'm going 2 or 3 weeks at a time without it, just waiting for the U.S. Postal Service or whatever. And you ask them about it, and it's a good circular blame game they have that sort of just spreads the guilt out enough to where you can't really go after one person in particular. And in a lot of ways, it sort of reflects our military operations with the drones. They can spread the guilt out just enough that you can't really blame one person in particular.
Since I've been in Afghanistan, or since I was in Afghanistan, I've been having nightmares about being responsible for killing children and trying to help them. And I would never be able to. It's just a feeling of helplessness. And every time I feel helpless, it reignites things. About a month ago, I was standing on the Gorge Bridge in Taos, New Mexico, and I was going to jump. And I decided not to because I thought about my sister and I thought about my now fiance. And I went to the VA and I told them I'm going to kill myself. And they put me in a psychiatric ward for 5 days. And I'm prescribed prazosin for the nightmares, gabapentin for the anxiety, lithium for the mood swings, and venlafaxine effects are for depression, trazodone for not being able to sleep. And up till now I haven't received any benefits. I don't know if I will, but I've been homeless several times. I slept in my truck, and I've had relationship issues. I mean, I dated a girl for 5 years, and when I came back from Afghanistan, I was punching walls. I pushed her down once, and we were getting screaming matches very often, and it was difficult for her to understand what I was carrying, but the piece of paper that I received saying that I assisted 200 plus enemy kills weighed on me very heavily because I knew that it wasn't just enemies, and I looked at the UN report later that year that said that I was responsible for, well, our system, which covered the entirety of Afghanistan, was responsible for 350 civilians killed by airstrikes. right after the military, I traveled. I didn't want to stay in the same place. I hitchhiked from Germany to Beijing, and I went through Central Asia. I went to Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, and I never paid attention to the news. And I found out that while I was going through Kyrgyzstan, I went to Osh 2 months before. There was an ethnic cleansing that people on the ground said killed 2,000 people, and in the news it said 400. And those were just the 400 that were in the hospital. But by Islamic law, you have to bury the body very soon. So I found out that it was over the opium trade, and it's been said quite often in the media by different sources that the opium production has increased by several folds since we've invaded. And we got people on our side. Hamid Karzai's brother was he is one of the biggest opium producers in Afghanistan, as well as the person who leased us the airfields in Kandahar. So, just want to say that.
Specific questions? Just a question about how other people in your units they reached out to you. Do they tell you you're a traitor? Do they say, I support you on the getters? What's the range? What's the range of what you hear?
So I've actually had people that I flew with tell me that if I was in an area where they were flying armed drones, that they would kill me even if they weren't given the order to do so. I've been told by really conservative, hyper-patriotic Americans that I was a traitor, and that if they found me by myself, then they would kidnap me and kill me, give me a death deserving of a traitor. I've only been contacted by the United States government twice. Well, technically once. First was by the FBI, and they called me up and they said, Mr. Bryant, this is the FBI, you're not in trouble. So I took that as kind of a good sign until they told me that I was on the ISIS kill list. But it's all the threats and stuff come from people who I don't think that they want to examine themselves or the nature of our job. And it has gotten out of hand quite a bit. I have someone right now who is harassing me online and saying things actually that was very similar to what someone was telling me did the same thing to me before I deployed to Iraq, telling me that they wish that I was dead, they hope that I get killed by somebody. And these people do exist, and these are the types of people that are either A, in our military, or are B, people who are staunch defenders of our government action.
There are other clients besides the ones at this table who have been notified by the military that they are on an ISIS kill list. I've actually gone through the ISIS kill lists that were released in May and in August, and they are not. But the remedy for being on the ISIS kill list, our military said they all needed to tone down their social media and to stop talking about drones. And this is all about intimidating and silencing whistleblowers. And Brandon's been out there on his own for years, and I'm grateful that other people are now coming forward. But it is appalling that the military, the United States military that these men served with, are now delivering death threats for ISIS and are coming up with these ruses that are completely false. They went to Brandon's mother, they went to another client's stepfather and said, your child is on the ISIS kill list and they need to tone down their social media presence and stop talking about drones. And that's the kind of threats that our government that's how far they're willing to go to silence people from talking about the problems with this program. And I hope by being here, I expect that retaliation will ensue from the government in whatever bizarre forms it tends to take against the whistleblowers